What is up? The chat calling me out for being late as usual. Welcome to No Punt Intended. The NFL draft is about 2 weeks away. We've done 2 episodes already where we've covered the quarterbacks and we've covered the running backs. Everybody is in love with this running back class, but I got to tell you, looking at these wide receivers, I think it's a pretty good class too, but do not take my word for it. We got Jagger May with us tonight. Let's get into this show. What is up? Welcome to No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. No Joe Zolo yet again this week, so you are stuck with me, Ryan Weisse, as your host. With me, as always, Josh Hudson. But I told you last week, I'm going to tell you again, nobody comes to these shows for me or Josh Hudson. We have the great Jagger May with us. Jagger, I think it is literally 53 weeks since you have last been on No Punt Intended, because I think you did running backs with us last week.
Yes. And I was so happy that this year I didn't have to do running backs again, because I was just like what more? It was like, one, running backs are like hard but good. Like they're hard to talk about because it's like, yeah, he's good, yeah. Or he's like bad. Whereas like receiver, there's a lot of nuance there. And then this year, this class is so talented. We've been talking about him all season. It's like, you got your guy and you're going to fight me if I say something bad about him. I don't need that energy right now. So
I remember last year you were telling me that you preferred wide receivers over running backs. So when we got around to this year, I said, before I ask anybody, let me ask Jagger and see where he wants to fit into this schedule. And you immediately said wide receivers. And I said, all right, I'll build around it.
And I think I said Jaylin Wright sucked in that show or something. Like, I think I remember. Yeah. And everyone's just like, but he's so fast, Jag. And I'm like, okay. Whatever.
Let's see who Jagger's going to piss off tonight. No, I love that. But Jagger, it's interesting though, because you were kind of alluding to what else can be said about these running backs. And maybe it's just because we're deeper into the class, but we've been putting together these Twitter threads about the prospects. And I was prepping tomorrow's thread on Travis Hunter. And I feel like there is more content on Travis Hunter. And I don't know if it's because he's a wide receiver and a DB, and we're going to talk about that later. I was able to find so much content on Travis Hunter, whereas with some of the running backs, I was struggling a little bit there. So maybe these wide receivers, there's a little bit more value there than people are giving it credit for.
Yeah, because especially if you're a pro late round running back guy, like, don't even try with the receivers. This is definitely the class that you should do that to. If you're bad at this, like at like drafting, like definitely just go get running backs. But it's not as bad as people say, where they're just useless. None of these guys are ever going to catch a pass. It's not that bad,
Perfect. Jagger, before we get started, I always like to give you guys a chance to promo yourselves right at the beginning of the show. Please introduce yourself. Let everybody know they can find your work. And if you're selling anything, sell it now.
I'm over Player Profiler and Fast Draft, baby. I'm the content director over there. I'm Fast Draft's Hayden Winks right now. And by that, I mean, I'm like the Kmart version, as in like there's like 4 of us around and we don't make a lot of money, but we'll get there. If Matt heard this, he'd be so pissed. We're growing. Everyone download Fast Draft. I also do on the side, like football's like half what I do now is unbinged. I talk about TV and nerdy stuff. So
very, very cool. Make sure you guys are following Jagger. It's at Jag Says over on X. Are you on Blue Sky or any of that other crazy shit, or have you?
I am, but just don't talk to me. I won't respond.
Yeah, that's kind of what I feel. And Josh, why don't you go ahead and pay some of Club Fantasy's bills as I throw Dynasty Nerds up on the ticker right now?
Absolutely. Head over to dynastynerds.com, use promo code Club Fantasy, and get yourself 15% off any one of their memberships. This is the time of year when it is great to utilize their prospect film room. Before every single one of these shows, I start diving into all their different cut-ups that they have of all of the different prospects. A lot of the wide receivers we're going to talk about today, that's what I've been basically binging on for the last week. So dynastynerds.com, use promo code Club Fantasy, save 15% off. They have trade calculators, their Dynasty GM, access to their Discord, all that, but nothing tops that prospect film room. It is absolutely fantastic. So save yourself 15% off using promo code Club Fantasy.
There we go. And we are going to get into the show. Like last week, we are going to start off with Jagger's top 10 wide receivers of the 2025 class. So, Jagger, I'm just going to read this top 10. Actually, you know what? Last week, I let the guest read it off. So, I'm going to let you read it off. You can go 1 to 10, 10 to 1. Talk to us a little bit about your top 10, and then we'll ask you some questions about these guys.
Oh, I love it. You're like you said this, so you're going to say it on here. I'm not
Yeah,
going to take any. I don't want anyone to have a chance to clip me or say anything. That's smart. We'll go from the bottom to top.
I love
it. Number 10, Jack Besh. 9, Ty Felton. I'm president of the Ty Felton fan club.
Okay.
If you want in, let me know. Jalen Royals at 8. Jaylin Noel at 7, Emeka Egbuka at 6. I'm sure I'll get hate for that. Elic Ayomanor at 5, Matthew Golden at 4, Luther Burton at 3, Travis Hunter at 2 for now. Tetairoa McMillan, I always butcher that, at number 1 for safety. So.
And I think that's why Josh phrased the first question for me with Tet McMillan, so we didn't have to pronounce his entire first name.
Yeah, I always try to do it the first time, so I hope I get better.
That's funny. That's exactly how I did the throat. Is I I put Tetairoa on the top one, and then I put Tet on the bottom one because it's just far less letters that I need to spell. This show has actually been a fan of Tetairoa McMillan for 52 weeks now because our guest last year, when we asked what wide receiver are we going to be talking about next year, said Tetairoa McMillan. So we thought that was a great answer to that question. What sets him apart in this class? I have a very specific question. When I was looking at my scouting report, he's the only one with 6'5" next to his name, and I have a thing for 6'5" wide receivers. So is he actually 6'5"?
I think I've been on another show with you where you've said that. You've basically like, I like him. I like my boys big, thick. So like I get it.
I have a type. I won't deny it.
And it's basically like, you kind of nailed it. Do you like Drake London? Do you like Mike Evans?
Yes.
This is the type of archetype he is. He's super safe. Like, and why I say he's a wide receiver 1 for right now is that he is the safe guy. Like, I even say Michael Pittman. A lot of people hate Michael Pittman. His problem is that he's a Colt. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
You know, but he
is it because he's a Colt, or is it because Anthony Richardson is his quarterback?
There you go. I'll eat that one. I used to like Anthony Richardson, but boy, does that look crappy. Yeah, but it's these type of guys. Whereas Travis Hunter, depending on where he's at, I don't have him wide receiver 1 so people don't yell at me, but I think he's actually the wide receiver 1. But like, he could be a Brown, and then we're like, is he really? You know, so that's more of why I don't have that in here, is that Ted is safe. He's big. He's fast. Not fast. He's modestly fast, but he's quick in and out of breaks, and he does things that other people weren't born to do because they're not 6'5".
I think there's a fear right now because of the perceived bad play of Marvin Harrison Jr. last year. And coming out, Marvin Harrison Jr. was viewed strictly as an outside wide receiver. And when you hear 6'5" and big bodied, you think strictly outside wide receiver. In my very limited scouting, it seems like Tet can play all over a lot more than Marvin Harrison Jr. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes and no. It's like Marvin Harrison can do more. They like Drew Penzig just like doesn't. Like it's kind of like it took Kevin O'Connell to think, it's like, man, did you know that Justin Jefferson could play in the slot, you know, or in the Z or over here? This is wild. You know, we could just move these guys everywhere if you just try. It's
crazy.
Yeah. It's just, and that's what I think about Marvin Harrison Jr. It's like, and he didn't even have a bad season. We just got spoiled with the start of Justin Jefferson, and we have these more progressive coaches that try things. But for every Sean McVay, you're going to get a Drew Penzig or Shane Waldron or whatever, you know.
No, that's true. Ryan, I want to mention the slot stuff with Tet McMillan. For his career, he ran about 23% out of the slot.
Yeah.
So like they used him there, and he was somewhat effective. I mean, putting somebody that's 6'5" out of the slot, like there's value to that. And
it's a baby tight
we can talk a little bit more about we can talk a little bit more about that too with Jayden Higgins when we get to the Iowa State guys, because I think he will be better as a big slot than he will an X receiver. Curious your opinion on that later. But like I like Tet McMillan. I kind of look at him as like a healthy version of Mike Williams. And like he's got the wingspan, he can get down the field. For me though, I just think he's really average with a lot of things that he does, except the length and the height. Like he's got really strong hands. Like you see him even going against Travis Hunter in 2023. Like there's that one end zone target where he literally is just like all like this. Quarterback just puts it only where he can get it. And he's one of the few wide receivers that can actually get it because he's that long and lengthy.
And that's why I said he's tentatively the wide receiver one, because it's just God-given ability. Yeah. I will say he has fast feet, and he's out of all these guys we've mentioned, he's the best yak guy. He's like underrated as a yak guy, which is meaningful. And that's why someone like the next guy like Travis Hunter, where I think that's like, let's say if the Patriots make a trade up for him, he's my to me, unless Mike Vrabel's the dumbest man in America, I won't rule it out. He should be the wide receiver one in this class, if not the 102 overall, even in Superflex. So,
oh wow, go ahead.
I think that's interesting that you even say that, because that kind of leads me right into my next question. You kind of talked about it. Like if we knew going into this draft that Travis Hunter was the overall or was a wide receiver, that cornerback wasn't even an issue. Is Travis Hunter your wide receiver one over Tet McMillan at that point?
Yeah. And here's a caveat. Any team, because I talked to Matt Olson with 32 beat writers, and he said even what he's heard, any of these teams in the top 5, they are a smooth brain franchise if they would not use Travis Hunter at least north of 50% of the snaps at wide receiver. You're telling me you're going to throw Kayshon Boutte and Stephon Diggs out there and you're going to say that's cool? Like even the Giants could think about it. It's just like the Browns are that big landmine, and the Browns are just landmine for any position except running back in fantasy to me, because everyone's like, I like Shadur Sanders, or Shadur Sanders is a Brown. RIP. I don't think they're like, you need help.
I think Sanders would fit so well in that offense, though.
I forget about Stefanski. It's more the quarterback situation. So if like he would go there, then you're right on there. I'll give you that. You're right. But wide receiver, man, if they get wide receiver, who's going to be their quarterback then?
Exactly. That's the issue.
That's what I'm talking.
And that's fair. Because really, you look at any of those top positions, you're dealing with whatever the Giants want to throw out with Russ and Jameis. Maybe they take a whoever falls to 3, or maybe they trade back into the back end of the first round or something to grab, Dart or Milrow or somebody else. But I guess the Browns are that, but what happens if they make a trade for Kirk Cousins? A year removed from the Achilles, maybe he's back to,
I think we saw
75% of what we saw at Minnesota. You know what I mean?
I guess even Kirk Cousins at half mast flying out there is better than pretty much what they had.
They have a Super Bowl winning quarterback in Kenny Pickett right now. There ain't better situation for the Cleveland Browns.
I get it. He is one of the quarterbacks that Philadelphia's ever had.
He played quarterback for the Eagles. That's certainly true.
Look, I remember when that used to mean something. Remember when the Cardinals traded a buttload of picks for freaking Kevin Cobb back in the day?
Dude, I thought about that the other day. I was just thinking about that. I was like, Andy Reid finessed.
Yeah.
Finessed him so hard because he's like, look what I did with Kevin Cobb. And then he's like, surely you guys could do that.
Well, I was like, Matt Castle, the same sort of thing. Like there's been some QB hustles in the league. That's for sure. I did want to say, check tomorrow's Travis Hunter thread. I actually found your clip with 32 beat writers, Jag. So you are in the Travis Hunter thread tomorrow where you guys are talking about him. So I thought it was funny that you brought that up. But it seems like, again, to Josh's point, if we knew he was a wide receiver, he would be your wide receiver one. But I wanted to go back to how you led us into this, because we tend to get away from the fantasy talk, but you in Superflex, you're going to take Genty and a wide receiver one, Travis Hunter, before you would touch either one of these quarterbacks?
Yes. And this goes back to more than ever. I just think the stats matter. Like Josh, I think we talked about this, man. Like, I'm drafting teams any more than ever. And right now, the Titans, I'm going to draft Cam Moore. it's not Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward's great. Brian Callahan just doesn't excite me. I have no reason to be excited about Brian Callahan. And then on top of that, Calvin Ridley something, but after that, that roster's pretty poo-poo on offense besides their running backs. So with Travis Hunter, I see him as baby Brian Thomas Jr. And I just mean that because he's a smaller prospect. It's some of these guys that there's just no question that they're the best athlete on the field. And it's not even that they're just fast or go zoom, zoom. It's that this kid moves so fast in and out of his breaks, and you can tell he's played corner because he knows how to set up his man. He may not be as finessed as someone else, and that's why I use Brian Thomas Jr. Like he didn't come in as polished as some of these others, but he's just so fluid and just such a natural monster that a team's going to figure it out. He's going to figure it out. And all that rest of that stuff is going to come with time.
I think Travis Hunter would be so much better if he didn't play every single snap, because like you watch some of that tape and when he's running some of these routes, he looks so tired. He really does. And it's wild to me that he's even still able to give as much effort as he does in these routes and, you know, being able to do what he does on offense. Like, I just stop and think like, man, if he's only playing 20% on defense, what could he do on offense? Because like if he goes to Cleveland, to me, he's a better prospect, a better wide receiver than Jerry Jeudy coming in.
It's not even close to me.
Not even close.
It's not even close. And it's like if he's like a Patriot, they have Christian Gonzalez there. Like they're going. That's one thing I know about Vrabel. He's going to be a solid defense, buddy. You're playing 85% of these wide receiver snaps. Like when we had the jumbo package, for sure, you could sit down. You know, we'll let Diggs go out there and block. You know, you can have a rest, and then you're playing on 3rd down and 2-minute drill on defense when we really need you out there. Like it. Yeah, you're going to use him often at cornerback. You should, but you don't need him on some of that early down stuff. But like, just keep him for the crunch time. You know?
We haven't seen a prospect like this
ever.
Honestly, ever.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders was the last one, and that was later in his career that he started doing things like this. It's so interesting because we always talk about how important landing spot is for these rookies, but for Travis Hunter, there's an extra element to it because his landing spot is going to determine what position he plays. And so
100%.
And there's a lot to go into it.
I'm not trying to plug my own stuff, but like our Origins tournament.
Plug your own stuff. That's the whole point of this show.
Thank you. Our Origins tournament is basically a rookie mock because it's all rookie super flex. So like that's the appeal of that tournament there. I see Travis Hunter going at the turn and I'm like, what are we doing? like this is best ball. It's like what do we like you should be taking him much earlier than Emeka Egbuka, you know? Like I get the exposure game, but it's so convenient. And you know what I've heard the egregious things is like people comparing him to guys that didn't even play cornerback. They only played special teams, you know, like I think people really underrate his skill level, and it really shows who's going off narrative and who knows ball. I'm not trying to be that dude, but it's pretty glaring.
I think we could probably spend the entire show talking Tet McMillan and Travis Hunter. No. Don't apologize to me. That's the whole point. But I do want to move on to some of these other guys because I feel like people know at least who they are. And I feel when we get down here, if you're not big into this, you may not know a lot of these guys, and you seem to be higher than Luther Burton than most rankers are right now. Did his poor 2024 take anything away from what was a stellar 2023 for you? Are you relying mainly on 2023's tape? Are people overrating how bad 2024 was?
You said all the things.
Okay. Sorry.
There's no one who hates a gadget wide receiver than I do. I've really good at grading wide receivers. And then a lot of people said, well, he was super productive. Gadget guy. Like people like Quentin Johnston. I'm like, buddy, that was a gadget dude in a 6'3" body. I don't know what you're talking about. Luther Burton's not that, man. His 2024 tape was better, but moreover, he won routes. This is why you like resources like not just me, whatever reception perception are so valuable because it shows what the receiver does regardless of the quarterback. Anytime they did use him downfield, he would burn his man. People are like, well, he's undersized. He proved us wrong at the combine. He came in at 6 foot, solid weight, and then he put out a solid combine. And I think this is someone that people are getting a little cute with, and you could have someone that has top 24 upside in Dynasty, if not higher, if he goes to the right spot. And you could get him in the middle of their first round. I've seen him go even later just because a lot of these people chase narratives.
I feel like a lot of people compare him to Deebo Samuel, and I don't love that comp.
It's just wrong. It's just objectively wrong. I
agree.
Yeah, because Deebo's not a good route runner, and Luther Burden is.
Deebo's a terrible wide receiver. I've been saying that for years. He's a great playmaker.
Gosh, I was actually going to ask.
That's all he is. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I didn't know a lot of the narrative on Burden. I was going to ask Josh if hearing this gadget player stuff was turning you off, because I know you are.
He reminds me a lot of DJ Moore. Like, I don't think he breaks. He doesn't break tackles the way that DJ Moore does, in my opinion. Like, DJ Moore is he's a baller. Like, when you put that football in his hands, like, he's a Mack truck. But like, and I don't really see a ton of that with Luther Burden, but like the play style, the yards after the catch, the way that he's moved around the offense, like, you can line him up in the backfield, you can put him on, sweeps, you can do, the motions, all those different types of things. That's the kind of game that Luther Burden plays. And I feel like that translates so much more into most nowadays NFL offenses versus what Deebo Samuel does. Because what Deebo does,
Jayden reads,
exactly.
And to me, I'm gonna go way back. Is like he's Lisan Al-Gaib. We've been chasing them since the Vikings drafted Percy Harvin. Like yes, he does the gadget thing. That's the gravy that he does. Like, yeah, you should use him in some gadget roles, get him some of them touches like you do Jayden Reed and all that. But he can go downfield, and that's what Percy Harvin was. It was just like health and migraines for Percy Harvin. Yeah. And I think he's the guy here. Like, to be honest, if the Patriots could trade down and get Luther Burden for cheaper and pick up some extra stuff, he's the ideal.
You could probably get Burden though in the top of the second.
That's maybe.
I think there's a lot of people that probably are like kind of zeroing in on very few specific wide receivers that I don't think you're going to get that, like 3 years ago or whatever it was with that Quentin Johnston class, right? Like there was 5 of them that went like right in a row in like the 20s. And I don't really think you're going to have that this year. I think you may have 3 at most go in the first round this year, because like the tackle class is so deep. Defensive tackle class is deep. You've got a couple elite options at certain positions, and then it just sort of falls off from there. So like, people are going to be, sort of taking those depth pieces and then maybe trading into the back end of the first round to kind of secure 5th-year options at certain positions. And I don't think wide receiver is going to be that position.
You nailed it, dude. Because like we in fantasy, we tend to only focus on the skill positions, but we don't look at the draft. That like, it's not so much this guy sucks. It's like, man, these edge rushers are just so good. They're going to push these wide receivers down. Because like you said, like Luther Burden would have been ahead of Zay Flowers, I think, in that particular class that you pointed out, ahead of Quentin Johnston, maybe even Matthew Golden. And that's not, I love Zay Flowers. I'm just saying that Luther Burden has another element that I don't think Zay Flowers can do, particularly downfield, just because he's not as even like big. I get it's 2 inches, but that matters.
Yeah, perfect.
100% it does.
Some people would say 2 inches is too big, is a favorite Joe Solos. Hoove brings up that the current over-under for wide receivers in the first round is 2.5. So we've been through 3 wide receivers, and Josh, you just mentioned Burden might fall. I bring up one wrinkle with this over-under line is, do they clarify what they're considering Travis Hunter? Because I would want to know that before I'm placing any money on a bet like this. I only bring it up to bring that up. I just think.
Yeah, I mean, if Hunter's considered a wide receiver, then it's going to be 3, because I think all of the buzz around Matthew Golden, it's going to have him probably as a top 20, top 25 pick. And then I'm fairly certain that Tet is going to go in the first round. Like I saw a mock where he ended up at like 32, and I was like, all right, look, I'm not the biggest Tet McMillan guy, but 32 is ridiculous.
I've seen him.
Like, he's going to go top 20. Yeah.
The ideal, I guess I'll save it. We're going to talk ideal spots. I won't spoil.
Yeah, let's save the landing spots. But Josh brings up Matthew Golden, and I think he's the next interesting one to talk about. Obviously, he had the great 40 time. He shot up rankings since the combine. Is he just that good of a prospect that maybe we were sleeping on before the combine, or is he Henry Ruggs all over again?
I think he's who Trey what people think Trey Harris is. Like Trey Harris is a notably missing out of my top 10, you know, and he offers an element of downfield ability along with a little bit of route chops that teams want, where you could see immediately where Matthew Golden could fit into team's roster, and he elevates the entire offense just because he has that downfield threat. And to give Henry Ruggs credit, he had a good season. He was another one where I was like, I think it was more that he was a Raider and a criminal at the end than he was just bad. Know?
Other shit went way wrong for him.
For his life. Like a lot went bad for him.
The reason that I was phrasing it that way is because Ruggs ended up going as the first wide receiver in that class.
Oh yeah,
and it was all based on speed, right?
Yeah.
Like it was all based on speed, and that's truly what I see with Matthew Golden. It's speed. But like I rewatched the tape from the Georgia game. He had a couple of big plays, and it felt like it was towards the end of the game when Georgia completely backed off the line and they were like busted plays. Like he could not beat man coverage in that game.
And what I worry about him is, like, you nailed it. Like I was like, you spoiled it. I was gonna say he's not physical. Where what it is I think he's athletic Jordan Addison, which is fun if you put it like that, where it's like I was a Jordan Addison hater because I'm like, well, he was so productive. I'm like, this dude straight up sucks against the press, dude. Like you could, like if you breathe air near him, you're knocking off him his route, you know. And Matthew Golden's got that energy in him. He's just like way faster than Jordan Addison is the thing.
I mean, the clock time, but like I don't see 4.28 speed on downfield at all. I really don't. Like the routes just don't develop very quick with him, and maybe it's the quarterback play. I don't know, but maybe I don't know. I don't see the Matthew Golden hype. I don't. Like I get the speed aspect. Like anytime you have somebody that fast, you can do so many things with your offense. But I just don't think he's a very well-rounded wide receiver. He's a one-trick pony, in my opinion.
I agree with you, but I'm not as far on that spectrum as you, because I think of him as a Jordan Addison prospect where a team is going to draft him to be a very, very good wide receiver too, you know. And
is that a top 20 pick though? Like, should that be a top 20 pick?
Worked out for Jordan Addison.
It worked out for a player. I would say exactly. Like the Vikings could have got a cheaper wide receiver. They could have got 100%. Jayden Reed later, you know, and got something they needed in the first round. So that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I mean, because as much as we can joke whether it worked out for Jordan Addison or not, it didn't work out for Jerry Jeudy, and he should have been the one to step into that number 1 spot there, and instead he's on to the Browns now. So yeah, we've definitely seen the both sides of the coin when it comes out to drafting a wide receiver 2 that early in a draft.
Yeah, I know. And even in fantasy, like Jordan Addison, I saw some crazy trades for him. So, you know,
I was going to say, I just dealt him in one dynasty league in a package to get Drake London. Cause I mean, what's a wide receiver 2 really going to do for you in dynasty? Like I want a wide receiver 1.
That's crazy. I was about to say, I was like, you got Drake London. I was like, what else?
In a package. No, I gave up a lot. Don't get me wrong.
Okay. I was going to say, like, good for you if you got it. It was cheap.
Josh, you want to jump in here for a question?
Yeah. How do we pronounce his name? Elic
Ayomanor.
Ayomanor. Okay. So I remember watching that Colorado game 2 years ago. He went absolutely ham on Travis Hunter. And I love that you have him in your top 5 because I haven't seen that from a lot of people. What do you feel that he brings to the table for a team? Like, can he be an actual wide receiver 1 for a team? Do you think he's more of a complementary piece? Like, what are the things that really shine in his game?
His physicality is evident. And even in that Colorado game, he didn't look like a well-rounded receiver. He looked like an NFL receiver, but he looked like a complementary guy. In his games in 2020, it's 2023 tape I didn't like. He just looked physical. Then he had that one game with Travis Hunter. But now in 2024, I get what all the hype is. He's a very, very quick feet, good route runner. A lot of people were questioning his speed. I saw the speed downfield, but like, again, like to plug Dynasty Nerds, I've watched every game available, like of them. And if you watch a lot of those games, you saw someone who can win on the outside deep, and then you saw someone who's effective as a slot receiver. But what's weird, specifically because of his size and the way he plays, he was such a hard comp that the closest I even got was like Michael Crabtree. And I don't even think that's a true comp, because he almost has like the AJ Brown in him, where he's just like a physical guy, even though he's not quite obviously as explosive as AJ Brown is. So he's someone, like, again, some of these teams that need a wide receiver but also have other needs, like the Giants or the Pats or whatever, go get your offensive tackle. And he's the guy that I would feel great running to the podium and putting in and putting in the draft ticket for at the top of the second. And you feel like you're getting a solid wide receiver 1 for your team at the top of the second.
I was going to say, as you bring up the Giants, that just seems like such a great fit with the base they're already building there. And obviously you still have to answer the quarterback question, but it feels like it's at least answered for this next season.
For now.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting you bring up comps. I was looking at Lance Zierlein's comps with NFL.com. He doesn't even have one for Ayomanor.
Oh, wow.
When you go onto Player Profiler, though, your site, they comp him to Khalil Shakir.
I saw that and I complained.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Doesn't that just go based on their scores though? Not necessarily.
Yeah,
it's like all their stats and their measurables. So
yeah, that's number. I was like, on tape, that's just not even particularly close.
Okay.
Shakir's like 4 inches shorter.
Yeah, Khalil Shakir is a poor man's Zay Flowers, and that's it's fine. He's such a weird comp, because he's like, man, he's a 6'2" kind of stocky guy, but he can get up and I've just never really seen it before. And if you, like you said, I'm happy LZ, he's watched more tape than I do, because a lot of us, like Jeff Bell, I even messaged him like, what's your comp for Elic Ayomanor? Like, I don't know. And that's exciting.
Yeah. The few things I saw from him,
you got a unicorn. I love it.
Yeah. The few things I saw from him and things that caught my eye when I was reading some of the reports on him, he doesn't seem to be, he's a willing blocker as a wide receiver as well. And I feel like that's going to endear him to some NFL coaches. So
Shanahan, like, this could be a weird Shanahan one. It's like, well, you didn't need that, but he's like, but I love him.
Daddy,
exactly. I love him.
There are needs and wants, and that is a want. I think we've reached the point where, and you said it during your rankings, that some folks were going to get mad at you, because who we haven't mentioned yet is Emeka Egbuka, who at one point was looked at as a kind of prized possession in this draft class, but that's slowly worked its way downhill. He came back for a senior year after a very subpar junior year. What kind of role do you see him transitioning to once he hits the NFL?
I think the best case scenario is that he's Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's not the route runner that Amon-Ra St. Brown is. Like, he may be a little bit more athletic. He's just not very polished. That's best case scenario, but it may be Rashee Rice. And the reason why I say those specifically is that I think he's a wide receiver 2 in a power slot. And where he goes is to how productive he's going to be. A lot of people are going to draft him, and especially in Dynasty, they're going to be like, heck yeah, I got a wide receiver 1 right now. And I don't think that you have a wide receiver 1. You have someone that's like a top 24 guy and has that potential, but I don't see him being a consistent target eater. However, I do think he could get drafted in the first round because he's a good football player. And a lot of times in fantasy, we have a hard time separating football player from fantasy player, because he is a great blocker. He does everything you want. Like, he's another one where I think if Shanahan gets a hold of him, I'm going to bump him up because he's creative to use him properly, but he's someone he's going to like because he's a great blocker. He's willing to do whatever you ask of him and do it with maximum effort. And that is very evident on tape. It's just, he's just not a very nuanced and polished route runner as some.
He reminds me a lot of Robert Woods.
Yeah. That's actually a great comp for him. Yeah. That's something, guys. That's not bad.
Josh bringing the heat tonight.
Yeah. like people get so mad they're like, guys, not every rookie class is full of Hall of Famers, man.
Yeah.
Like some of these
true.
guys are just perfectly okay and good guys that are going to have good careers.
Yeah, no, I would love to see him with the Rams. Literally, you were talking about the
another-
Shanahan system. Like, I think that, you bring in Devontae Adams, on a 2-year deal. Obviously, he's gonna eat this year next to Puka. But the way that they use Puka, the way that they used Puka with Cooper Kupp, the way that they use Cooper Kupp with Robert Woods, like they could use Egbuka with Puka in that exact same way, starting in 2026 or even 2027, whatever it may be. Like the way that Egbuka plays, like he does that yeoman's work, right? Like it's the down, the dirty, like he gets physical, he
Gritty.
can do the things that he needs to do. And that, to me, those are the traits that coaches absolutely fall in love with. And when you're able to produce, I mean, he had 2,000-yard seasons out of 3 years. But like the one thing that I noticed specifically in the 2024 tape, the way that Chip Kelly used them very similarly to how he used Nelson Aguilar when he was in Philly. Like kind of used them in a lot of those like underneath, like, slant digs, like those types of routes. And
Rashee Rice routes. That's
exactly. The Rashee Rice, exactly.
100%.
Kind of makes me think that Egbuka to the Raiders in the second round may not be a bad idea either.
And that one I don't love for long production because I was like, oh, cool, you've got 3 guys.
That's what I was just going to say is I was hesitant to put any underneath guy on the Raiders because then you got Jacoby, you got Bowers, and now you're throwing another wide receiver.
Yeah, but Jacoby Myers has proven he can play outside. Like it's not going to be the deep threat on the outside.
Yeah, I was going to say has he, but I get what you're saying.
Okay,
yeah.
Like they move him inside and out all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's another skill set that Egbuka has. Like he can play that inside outside, but I do think he's more of like a YZ over an X.
No, it's funny you mentioned that because I forget about the Rams because even more so they use the gritty guys because Puka, like I said, he's baby Puka Nacua. Like even I forgot that Puka Nacua is like 6'3", 220.
Yeah.
Like I actually saw him pop up on TikTok in one of my chef accounts that I watch, and I was just like, how tall is this chef? He's taller than Puka. I was like, Puka is 6'3". It's like this guy's been an absolute monster the whole time, and I can't tell because he's like hunched over a grill. That's like I digress, but like they're similar player, and why I don't think he can reach Puka's status quite is like people forget that Puka's a monster. Like he's just a long-haired monster,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's real interesting because like Josh said, they could just recreate what they've had with the Rams, and clearly it brought success. Let's wrap up with Emeka asking Hooves question, going back to his 2.5 wide receivers in round 1. Do we see Emeka Egbuka having the skill set? Is there some team that could fall in love with him? Do you think he could go in the first round of this NFL draft?
Yeah, I think he can. And it's not, to me, it's where he goes. I think he's going to, I don't see Egbuka falling far out of like into the second if he does. It's just where and the usage because he could be doing a lot of dirty work that doesn't score fantasy points too. That's another thing. And that's why I want to bring out like his floor is why I rank him accordingly.
No.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had him pegged to the Steelers before the DK Metcalf trade. And I think unless they decide like on draft day to move George Pickens, I don't see them taking a wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah, be a waste.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like the right move for them, and they still got a lot of other shit to figure out. So.
Yeah, dude. I was it's like,
I still need a quarterback.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers ain't it for anybody.
No,
you're going to lose that. Absolutely. It's like you're going to lose chicken, Aaron Rodgers chicken.
Yes. Looking at the Iowa State duo, Jaylen Noel, Jayden Higgins, they made some noise in the draft class. Why do you have Noel over Higgins?
Noel's good. He's a good player, and Higgins is not. I mean,
I was just gonna say. So, are you saying Higgins is not? But you said Higgins is not. So.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think. Jayden Noel. I think he's like a Jayden Reed type, the way I see it. And a lot
of Jayden Reed comps in this class. Is that the way the NFL's starting to go? That it's a lot of Jayden Reed types coming out of college, and it's what the NFL's looking for. He's
the new Debo type thing, where it's just like he's He's like the fancy Debo. He's like the IPA of Debos, you know, something like that. You know, it's just because he can win downfield, and two, he can actually run routes, you know, but I definitely see him limited more to the slot. Maybe he's best closer to the line of scrimmage, because like sometimes I watch his tape halfway through like one game, I'm like, I don't get it at all. And I was already sour on Higgins. I was just like, this ain't for me. And then I saw it. They started using him a little bit in those Rashee Rice routes. And you could tell when Noel's going to get the ball where he's just like, I'm going to cook this dude. Cause like I saw
he's so much more enthusiastic.
Yeah. I was just like, there it is. I was like, that's a football player. And then, and I don't see that with Higgins, man. I get the Raz. I've seen a lot of Raz, man. But I'm a tape guy. The Raz matters, and the Raz will bump some dudes up and put him down, but it doesn't fix poor route running. I just don't think he has good spatial awareness. I don't think a lot of that stuff that he does in gym shorts and underwear translates on the field. And again, I quote Matt Harmon. He validates me most of the time. That shit was red, dog. It was red like these lights back here. It was ugly. And I'm like, yeah, I don't see that as someone I'm going to put my chips on, when some of these other guys were like Elic Ayomanor falls around that same range. Jaylin Noel, like you could kind of pick the two. I'd just rather have him, you know, it's pretty easy for me to fade.
Noel's got some burst and he can separate. That's the one thing that I really liked. Like when you get him on that certain route. Like I was watching, there was a couple games that I was watching on that Dynasty Nerds film room, and the moment he would kind of do one of those like fake, you know, the head fakes and then cut inside, and he's pulling 2, 3, 4, 5 yards away. And I'm just like, okay, that's some separation right there. And the funny thing is, you don't see that from Matthew Golden. So like those teams that are looking at Matthew Golden, pivot and go get Jaylin Noel around later. Like that dude can absolutely cook on those deep routes.
Yeah, we watch the same guys because exactly, like, he knows it. He can feel it. He's just like, gotcha. And then he just like shoots out of a cannon. And when you're watching the tape, you're just like I think I like ripped the dab at that point. I was just like,
honestly, he reminded me a little bit, and this is kind of going back a little bit. It reminded me a little bit of like peak Eddie Royal, like the way that he kind of lines up, because you can use him inside and out, where, you know, he's going to be a little bit more effective in the slot. But like he can do those, you know, 10 and, you know, comebackers, you know, he can go downfield. He can do all these different things. Like he's a fun one to watch. Jayden Higgins, he needs to go the Jordan Matthews route. Like the big slot, that's the only, and bad hands, like that's like perfect for him.
That's actually what I was going to bring up. Is I feel like what we're starting to run into is we're running into this cross section where people want to like Higgins, but it's not what today's NFL is. And it just doesn't seem that it's going to be a
Higgins
role.
cannot separate. Like you put somebody right on him, like man coverage, press, like he's just going to fold like a box of tissue paper. But you put him in the slot where defenders typically are 5, 6, 7 yards off the ball, and then you hit him with a quick one. As long as he can catch it, he can do some damage. But that's usually the problem, is he doesn't always catch it.
Jayden Higgins and Trey Harris are my 0 shares, 0 cares prospects. So it's like,
interesting.
Really? Okay.
I think both of them are the landmines, like especially a wide receiver. We talk about, you know, the running back bros, just draft running backs. These are the two wide receivers that are going to validate them, as Trey Harris and Jayden Higgins, I think.
Well, Josh deleted the question, but I was going to say,
we don't need to go into that. It's kind of time-wise.
Okay, I got you. I was going to say, let's go into why you hate Trey Harris, but Josh has one final question before we talk about some of your sleepers, because there's a guy that probably would have been higher on this list if not for his pro day, as I keep bringing up to Josh.
I got to know about my boy Xavier Restrepo, because I absolutely love this kid.
Xavier Restrepo is grossly high in my mocks every week, or in my big boards every week until the pro day, you know, and it's more, I pushed him down because I know how the NFL is. So I'm like, he's just going to be wide receiver 10 forever, because he's going to be a day 3 guy, because he's a strict slot guy. But like, dude, he's got, I'm surprised Bill Belichick isn't trying to pull him over to North Carolina right now. Just like, it's crazy. You know, you know who he is as a player, and he does that thing really well. So
So what you're saying is he's going to be a 4th-round pick to the Patriots, and he's going to take over for Demario Douglas, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean he could.
Josh
Demario
McDaniels,
Douglas is
like
whiny.
McDaniels
Yeah.
could do some damage with that. Just saying.
Yeah. He's like, we don't care about Raz or height over here. We never have.
No, it's about football players.
We don't even care what position you played.
Yeah. And he's a smart kid, man. He finds the middle of that zone. He will sit there and he'll improvise. Like he's just such a smart player, and that's really what I love about him. He's got good hands, and I mean, even on tape, like the tape doesn't really show a ton of speed. So like the pro day wasn't that surprising. I kind of figured he'd be in that 4.65 range, truthfully, but. I mean, if Jake Bobo can hold a job running a 4.92 or whatever the fuck he ran, Restrepo is going to be fine. So,
Yep.
Before we get into landing spots, let's talk about your favorite mid to late round sleepers. So you got 3 guys listed here. I have no questions about them. I'm just going to let you go ahead and dive in here about these 3 guys. Go ahead.
Ty Felton, Jack Besh, and Kyle Williams. Kyle Williams, we've already seen he's got 6 top 30 visits already. The hype is real for that. He's one of my re-review players, and he's just an outside guy that can win deep. Ty Felton, I think, there is a role for him. He could play Z or X, and he is a burner. Like, Ty Felton is how I kind of feel about what you're saying about Noel versus Matthew Golden. Like, if you want a Matthew Golden, just go get Ty Felton. At the end of the day, I think they're kind of the same player. And I'm not just doing that because he's a white dude who can ball. Jack Besh looks exactly like Adam Thielen on tape, man. They look exactly the same, and their measurements are the same. I think their combine grades are the same. And we've seen that can win in the NFL. That works. Yeah. So like he's someone that I've really bumped up. I wasn't in on him early, but after the Senior Bowl, I get it. I see it.
Yeah, I was going to say he is someone who is a testament to the Senior Bowl because I didn't know a lot about him going into the Senior Bowl. Coming out of the Senior Bowl, I love the kid. I'm going to be real interested to see where he ends up. I think he's one of the players where for fantasy football, if he ends up in the right spot, he could be a deep sleeper who's going to pay dividends in fantasy football, Jagger.
Mm-hmm. I've seen him mock to the Packers quite a bit. Like
if you said the Patriots, I'd have been like, Jesus Christ, that's just lazy.
No, but like
and racist.
You know who hasn't?
I'll save that talk for Joe Zolo.
I was just gonna say, you know who hasn't gone to the Patriots? Joe fucking Zolo in every mock, I'm sure.
Oh, that's funny. No, I always thought that was funny because, like, you know, the Packers wide receiver room is deep. Like they've got some talent, but they don't really have like a definitive
target
like,
owner.
number
They don't
one
have
guy. Yeah, they don't have a target owner. Exactly. I don't know if Jack Besh is that, but
I don't think he is.
Yeah, so to me, it just kind of feels like a wasted pick at that point. Like and I've also seen Matthew Golden get mocked there, and I'm just like, that just kind of feels like another version of Christian Watson, that maybe a healthy version, right? Like just a speed guy on the outside that you hope can turn into something big, but more than likely isn't because he's very limited in what he can do.
Yeah, the Packers love drafting receivers, and they like doing the money ball thing. Except for them, you just have a defense that you could cover with like normal coverage. It's like, all right, everyone watch your deep guy. He's just like, you don't have to try to do shit, you know, like Justin Jefferson, everyone just like, you know, you don't have that panic, you know, like at all. You just like, all right,
play defense and you're going to be okay.
Josh Jacobs knew what he was doing when he said, we need a number one guy that can dominate and take over games.
Yeah, he was right. And I'm sorry that who gives a shit got upset, but there's a reason why your running back said that and no one argued.
While we're talking about the late round guys, I'm going to throw Hoove up here because I don't know who the fuck this is. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, Jagger. He wants to know your thoughts on, is it Shamir Dyke or DK? I don't know the name at all.
That is new to me.
Okay.
And what's funny, he's on my list. I'm in a startup right now and someone brought him up. And because Hoove brought him up, I'll actually believe it. Because like this other startup they're dynasty bro nuts right now. I'm like, you know, there's actual NFL players in there and you're drafting these people. So I have zero opinion.
I don't know. He went to Florida. I'm not really that high on him. So.
Okay. I say I've not even heard the name. And so I was like, cause that's a dope name. And so I was like, I would remember this.
I was like,
I think it's a cool name. Fuck you, Jagger. I guess it's a shitty name. Let's move on. All right, guys, we're going to close out the show as we always do with our predictions on where these guys are going to land. And some of this is going to be about fit. Some of this is going to be about draft predictions. Let's start it off with Tet McMillan. Jagger, where do you have him going?
The Panthers. They got to. It's the perfect fit, man. I think that obviously when you have Dave Canales, he knows what to do because he's had Mike Evans. And I'm not the type of guy that's like, well, he's going to be in the Mike Evans role. This is one of those cases where you could feel pretty comfortable with that. And boy, do they need a guy who can create and actually do something downfield and isn't just a 6'3" Debo wannabe. Like, that's basically all they got now.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't disagree with that more or agree with that more. That needs to happen because as someone who wants to see Bryce Young continue this growth that we saw last year, my God, if they could just get him a guy like Tet McMillan, that would just bring a smile.
I'm just saying, y'all sitting here talking about the development of Bryce Young. You're willing to wait on that. Why can't we wait on the development of Xavier Leggett? Just saying, they spent a first-round pick on him. I don't think they're gonna toss him aside after 1 year. So
because Xavier Leggett is not 6'5". So I'm not waiting on that motherfucker at all. Josh, you went with a team where Tet would not be the wide receiver one.
Because I don't think he is a wide receiver one. I think he's more of a complimentary piece. But I think the Cowboys are dumb enough to make that kind of move. But I think you put him next to someone like a CeeDee Lamb, he can be extremely effective. They can use Lamb and Tet the same way that the Chargers once used Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I think that would be a really good way to bring out the best in Tet. Brian Schottenheimer, not the most creative offensive coordinator, but he has a long line of stints as an offensive coordinator and a play caller. And really he's going to condense the target shares to probably about 2 players. And I think that they would prefer it to be 2 wide receivers versus a wide receiver and a tight end, especially because they don't really have an elite option at tight end in Jake Ferguson. Yeah.
Jake Ferguson is the Brent Selleck of Dalton Schultz's. So it's like
exactly. I'm not going to do a ton of analysis for my picks. I got him going to the Raiders just because of the fit. You have the underneath guys. You need somebody who can do something on the outside. That's where I'm throwing Tet McMillan. Josh has Emeka Egbuka here second. Where do you got him going, Jag?
The Titans, because if he falls there, they'd be dumb not to take him. I mean, Ridley's old. Is he a wide receiver one? No, but he's decent.
I just want to quickly throw Hoove up here. Hoove and you have been vibing on the show because Hoove says he just wants to throw out Cam Ward could use a wide receiver one. That was when we were talking about Egbuka earlier in the show. So
yeah, that's exactly it. That's why I have him in the Titans. It's I think that that would be perfect because even if he's not the guy, he's better than Nick Westbrook-Akine,
who's now in Miami.
Yeah, I was about to say, come on now.
Emeka Egbuka might score 15 touchdowns if he's going to take over the Westbrook-Akine role. So.
Yeah, 1 per game.
Exactly. I love it. That's the kind of production we're looking for in fantasy. Josh, I mentioned the Raiders on the last pick. You kind of already alluded to this earlier on when coaching gets involved. So
yeah, Chip Kelly has most players when they make that, or coaches when they make that jump from college to the pros, they'll have certain players that they kind of connect with. And I think the Raiders, they need to make some fits on both sides of the ball, honestly. Bringing in Pete Carroll, he's going to make some changes on the defense, but Chip Kelly is used to getting his way when it comes to what he wants to do on offense. And Egbuka had a solid season with him. I think bringing that piece in, especially when Jacoby Myers is a free agent after 2025, this is a move that can be made not only for 2025 but 2026 and beyond as well.
Yeah, I had him going to the Broncos for 2 reasons. Number one, I feel like he fits what they need there. You bring in Evan Ingram, but Evan Ingram is a tight end who doesn't do a lot of underneath stuff, where Egbuka can kind of fill that role while Evan Ingram stretches the field. But 2, Sean Payton just seems to have a thing for Ohio State wide receivers. It seems like you need a wide receiver. Why not go out and get another Ohio State wide receiver? Lazy analysis, but that's what I'm going for here. Moving on to Luther Burden. Jag, you got him going to Washington.
Yep. I hope they're smart enough to know that Debo is an even better wide receiver 3. Maybe
I was
even
going to
4.
throw out, though, that it's hilarious that people were comping him to Debo, which you think is ridiculous, but now you got him going to play with Debo. So
Yeah, because like I think he's an actual wide receiver 2 that could be
that's
a wide
awesome.
receiver 1. Let's put it this way. I don't think Debo's real. Like, I don't care about that at all that he's there.
Yeah, I mean, this whole show agrees with you. It just took a little beating into my head to make that understood.
You're finally on board, Brian.
Oh,
Thank
100%.
you.
Last year was all I needed. But no, I think that's an interesting fit with Burden throwing him into that Cliff Kingsbury offense there, Jagger.
Mhm.
And then Josh, you have him going to Tennessee.
Yeah, I think Luther Burden can be for the Titans what they had initially hoped that Treylon Burks would be. And I know it was a previous regime, but the way that he can kind of complement, the full route tree that Calvin Ridley runs, and he can, sort of be that complementary piece initially until, it comes time where he has to be a more evolved wide receiver. He has the skill set to be able to do that.
Yeah, I also see him as a complimentary piece. I am going to Dallas, filling that role that Brandon Cooks is leaving behind. So I think that's a nice one outside where you don't have to play the top corner every single week. And I think it's one that Burton could do very, very well in. Matthew Golden, Jagger, you have him going to Dallas probably for similar reasons, but you can probably say it better than me.
Yeah, I mean, there's not more to say. I think he's a wide receiver 2,
Yeah.
and he'd be best when on the outside where he can – get some cardio, but maybe get meaningful cardio, and then CeeDee Lamb can get all those targets underneath.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And like you said, it's meaningful cardio. Josh, who were we saying that about last year that they were doing cardio every week? I cannot remember.
Oh God, there was probably half a dozen wide receivers.
Yeah, there was
that.
some one wide receiver we kept making that joke about, and it's gone now. But Josh, we
Get
both
ready to
picked the
run
Seahawks.
9 route, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. It's Madden. It's Madden. It's hot route. It's square.
Yeah.
It's up. Josh, we both had the Seahawks. I'll let you go ahead and explain it.
Yeah, I think he can basically be a better version of Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Clint Kubiak coming and taking over the offense in Seattle. We saw how explosive the Saints offense was in those first couple of games last year, what they're able to do when they're clicking on all cylinders. You've got basically redundant pieces in JSN and Cooper Kupp that you kind of need some diversification in that wide receiver room. And I think Matthew Golden has a very different skill set than what JSN and Cooper Kupp offer. And I think that will really help bring that offense together.
Yeah, they're trying to run death by 1,000 slots.
And we've seen that try and fail so many times in the NFL recently. So, but it's going to work this time.
Yeah.
Josh, I'll let you get us started since Jagger and I agree on Travis Hunter. You say that the Browns, and I assume you're saying the Browns at pick 2 then.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago when we had the quarterback show, I was really feeling that Shedeur Sanders would probably be that pick. I think the tides are kind of shifting a little bit. I think that the Browns they'll do something, whether it's trade into the back end of the first round, take somebody in the top of the second. Maybe they make a move for Kirk Cousins. I don't know. But I think really at the end of the day, they need talent on this team. And truthfully, they don't have a wide receiver 1 because Jerry Jeudy ain't it. And Travis Hunter can step in. He can be a wide receiver 1, and he can play that 20 to 25% on defense opposite Denzel Ward, because that's the other side of it. The Browns don't need a number 1 corner because Denzel Ward is that. But they can benefit from playing Travis Hunter on that side on third downs, right? You put him on the opposite side of Denzel Ward. It's going to force teams to either check into draw plays or target the slot with whomever they're going to line up at the slot. And that's ultimately what's going to make that defense so much better when you have a pass rusher like Myles Garrett. So I think that truthfully, he fits best with the Browns just because I want to see him on offense, not necessarily because I'm a fantasy player, but also I think he's a better wide receiver than he is a corner, which says a lot because I think he's a damn good corner too.
Yes. That is
and
correct.
Jagger, you've been talking about Hunter to the Patriots the whole show. Everything Josh just said about the Browns goes for the Patriots. They don't need him to be their best corner. They do need him to be their best receiver. But guess what? The Patriots also have a quarterback, Jagger. So that's for fantasy. I want Hunter in New England.
If Hunter's going number 2, trade with the Browns. Go Like, if they're going to do that, go trade with the Browns. The Browns are not a very smart team. You probably can get a good deal, you know?
I don't think there's anything else to add there. Do you want to throw anything else in for Hunter to the Patriots? Or like I said, you talked about it the whole show. So
yeah, let's say good idea.
I still think the Patriots need to go offensive line. So I think Will
could.
Campbell's going to be their pick.
All right. And Jagger, we do this at the end of every one of these shows. We're talking wide receivers. Let's talk briefly about the 2026 class. What wide receiver sleeper might we be talking about next season around this time?
Deion Burks, he's someone I really liked this year. OU just sucked, and he couldn't get a lot of targets. He went back there for some reason. I don't know. This kid can do it all, and I see him in the same light as Deion Burks in usage, and almost identical a lot. So depending on what kind of season he has, I think he's going to be underrated next year.
Okay.
And he's someone I'm targeting. I'm in 2 Devy leagues. I'm going to make trades for him.
All right, Deion Burks, you heard it here first. Let's see if we're talking about that guy next year. I love it. Jagger, thank you so much. This show has been fantastic. I don't know the last time I've laughed this much on a show. Always great to have good people on the show. Please remind everybody what you're working on, where they can find it right now.
I'm over at Player Profile and Fast Draft if you're into football, and if you're into like nerdy shit and TV, over at Unbinged. So.
I love it. Guys, we got one more of these shows left. Stars of Tomorrow wraps up next week with the tight end position. We got Brandon Hay from DLF and FF League winners here. We're going to break down the tight end position. It's actually pretty exciting this year. We've had some really shitty tight end shows over the last few years. Not guests, just the content. I think the content is yeah, exactly. The content is going to be much better this year. That is the end of this show. Make sure you guys tune in next week. It's every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern for No Punt Intended. My mock draft show is actually back now as well. That's Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be doing a startup this week with Club Fantasy Zone, Joel Worth, but Stars of Tomorrow continues next week as we push towards the NFL draft. After that, we got a ton of stuff going on for the draft. We'll tell you more about that next week. For Josh, I'm Ryan. Thank you so much to Jagger. You can follow Club Fantasy on all the socials at Club Fantasy FFL. Always remember, defense wins championship, offense wins fantasy football, and we will see you next week.